Hi guys, I'm Nancy, and I'm going to show you how to solve a quadratic equation by factoring. Okay, first we're going to look at a simpler one and just use a brute force method. And then I'm going to show you a tougher one where it's going to be faster and easier to use a trick called the magic X method, or X method. And that's for when the brute force method would take way too long. And this trick will absolutely give you your factors so that you can solve your equation. Okay, so say you have this quadratic equation that starts with x squared, and you need to solve it by factoring. Okay, so what you want is two factors, each starting with x, that multiply to your expression and equal 0. Okay, so what you need to do to factor is find two numbers that multiply to negative 16, your last number, and add to positive 6, your second number. So that's two numbers that multiply to negative 16 and also add to your middle number 6. So again, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 16 and add to positive 6. So first what you need to do is make a list of all pairs of numbers that multiply to negative 16, and you can do that off to the side. So we want two numbers that multiply to negative 16. Let's list the pairs. We could have 1 and negative 16. We could have flipped signs, negative 1 and 16. We could have 2 and negative 8. Flip the signs, negative 2 and 8. We could also have 4 and negative 4, or the opposite, negative 4 and 4. Okay, so you've made a list of all numbers that multiply to negative 16. Now let's look at the other requirement. You need to find which ones add to positive 6. So let's check them. 1 plus negative 16 would add to some negative number, so that can't be it. Negative 1 plus 16 would give you positive 15. It's a bit too large. 2 plus negative 8 would give you negative 6. So it's close, but it's the wrong sign. Negative 2 plus 8 would add to positive 6. So those are your factor numbers. Now you don't need to check any pairs that are left. You can assume they're not right. You found your factor numbers negative 2 and 8. Okay, so now you've found your two numbers and you just need to fill them into your factors. So you found negative 2 and 8, so you simply put negative 2 here, positive 8 there, and you've found your factors. So by the way, you could also switch these numbers. You could change the order and it would be fine. Plus 8, negative 2, because these are both x plus in your factor terms, so the order actually wouldn't matter. Okay, so this can actually just be simplified to x minus 2 times x plus 8 equals 0. Okay, so now you've factored and you're ready to solve, and all you need to do is take each of these factors and set them each separately equal to 0. So now pull each of these out and write them as a separate equation. We have x minus 2 set equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0. Use your algebra skills to solve. You add 2 to both sides so that you just have x equals 2. So there's one of your solutions, x equals 2. Okay, so we'll do the same thing for the other factor. Pull it out separately. You have x plus 8 set equal to 0, so that's x plus 8 equals 0. Solve by subtracting 8 from both sides, minus 8, and we just have x alone equals negative 8. So that is your other solution. So x equals 2 and x equals negative 8 are your two solutions that you found by factoring your quadratic. Okay, say you have a tougher example where your quadratic equation starts with a term like 2x squared instead of just x squared. So what you have to do first is check to see if you can factor out a number overall. Okay, so in this problem we can actually pull out a 2 from every term. So we would have 2 parentheses, and then what's left over is x squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. So notice that this problem was actually just like the last one, but hidden. It was disguised by an overall 2 constant. So this would actually just factor using the same brute force, simpler method from the last problem, and you would have 2 times x minus 2, x plus 8. So watch out for an overall constant that's making it look harder than it actually is. Okay, say you have a tougher quadratic equation that starts with 3x squared and you want to solve by factoring. So you need to find 2 factors so that your equation looks like this and equals 0. Okay, so the first thing you do is literally just draw an x off to the side. So in the top of your x, you're going to put the number you get from multiplying this first coefficient, 3, by your last number, -5. So that's 3 times -5. And that's going to go in the top of your x. So we have -15 in the top of your x. Then, in the bottom of your x, you're just going to put your second constant, your second coefficient. So we put +14 in the bottom of the x. Now here's the trick. You want to find 2 numbers that multiply to -15 and add to 14. So that's 2 numbers that multiply to -15 and add to +14. So let's list all the pairs of numbers that multiply to -15. Now, test to see which of these pairs add to +14. 1 and -15 doesn't. -1 and 15 adds to +14. So those are your 2 numbers. Now let's write -1 and 15 on either side of your x. We have -1 and 15. It doesn't matter what order you put those in, you can flip the order. Now here's an important step. You're going to divide each of those 2 numbers by your leading coefficient, which in this problem is 3. So we're going to divide -1 by 3 and divide 15 by 3. Now that simplifies. So your simplified x would have the same top and bottom numbers, -1/3, and 15 over 3 simplifies to just 5/1. Okay, you're almost done, you're very close to factoring. You're going to take these 2 fractions and use them to write your factors. So the bottom number here, 3, is your coefficient of x, and your top number, -1, is your constant, so just write -1. Same thing goes for the other factor, where you use this fraction. Your bottom number is your coefficient of x, and your top number is just your constant, so +5. So you have a factored quadratic equation, and you're ready to solve. So what you do is take each factor and separately set them equal to 0. So this one equal to 0, and this set of parentheses equal to 0. Now let's pull that out separately down below. So we have 3x minus 1 set equal to 0. As its own equation, that's 3x minus 1 equals 0. And when we solve that, we get 3x equals 1, or x equals 1/3. So that's one of your solutions. Now we'll do the exact same thing for the other factor. Pull it out down below, so we have 1x plus 5 set equal to 0. And when you solve that, you will get x equals -5. And that is your other solution. So now your two answers, your two solutions are 1/3 and -5, and you found them by factoring your quadratic equation. So I hope that trick helped save you some time. And if it did, please click like below or write a comment.